3 weeks ago, my sister stood in my parents' backyard under a string of white lights and told 30 people that our entire family was flying to Hawaii the following week. Everyone clapped like she had just announced a miracle. The neighbors cheered. My mother pressed her hand to her chest as if she might cry from happiness. My father lifted his glass and nodded proudly like this was proof that the Whitfords were thriving. I remember the smell of grilled salmon still hanging in the air. I remember the way the ice cubes clinked in everyone's glasses. I remember thinking for one fragile second that I was included. I smiled and asked the simplest question in the world. What time does the flight leave? Cassandra turned slowly and looked me up and down. Not surprised, not confused, just amused. Then she said loud enough for every guest to hear, "You are not going anywhere. Stay home. Keep the house clean and make sure you take good care of my two dogs." My parents laughed, out loud, like it was a harmless joke. 30 pairs of eyes turned toward me, and that was the moment I realized I was not their daughter. I was their help. But what none of them knew was that for 3 years I had been living a second life, and that night I finally decided to stop hiding it. The Whitford house has always looked impressive from the street. White colonial siding, black shutters, trimmed hedges shaped into perfect squares. My mother keeps the front porch swept so thoroughly you could eat off it. She says first impressions matter. She says neighbors notice everything. That night the backyard was staged like a magazine spread. Round tables draped in ivory linen, floating candles in glass bowls, a rented speaker playing soft jazz. My mother had insisted on a catered dinner, but still had me in the kitchen by noon helping plate desserts because it would save money. Cassandra arrived late in a fitted linen dress, dramatic as always, letting everyone take her in. She raised her glass and said she and her husband had booked a full week at a resort in Maui. First-class flights, oceanfront suite, the whole family. She said it like she was gifting something sacred. The applause came fast. My father clapped the loudest. My mother leaned into him, smiling the way she does when she thinks people are impressed. I was standing near the drink table, holding a tray of shrimp skewers. My hands were steady when I asked the question. What time does the flight leave? Cassandra's lips curled slightly. You are not going anywhere. She paused for effect. We need someone responsible to stay here. The house cannot just sit empty, and the dogs need proper care. You know how sensitive they are. My father chuckled and said, well, someone has to be practical. My mother added, Dulcie is good at these things. Good at these things. I felt heat rise in my chest, but my face stayed calm. Across the table, Mrs. Garrison from church shifted in her chair and looked down at her napkin. Her husband cleared his throat. Someone whispered something I could not quite hear, but I caught the words, poor thing. I set the tray down carefully so it would not shake. That was not the first time Cassandra had said something like that. A year ago at Thanksgiving, she joked that the family did not need to hire help because they had me. Everyone laughed then, too. I laughed with them because that is what you do when you are the easy one. I am the one who arrives at 7 in the morning to start breakfast casseroles. The one who wipes down counters before guests arrive. The one who scrubs dried mud off the tile when the dogs run through after a storm. The one who cleans up wrapping paper on Christmas while Cassandra takes pictures of her children in matching pajamas. I never agreed to that role. It just settled onto my shoulders quietly, year after year, until it felt permanent. Standing there in the glow of patio lights, listening to my family laugh, I realized something had shifted. I was not embarrassed. I was done. I looked at Cassandra and said calmly, that is fine. I will not be here next week anyway. There was a ripple of confusion around the table. My father frowned. Do not be dramatic. I did not raise my voice. I did not argue. I simply repeated, I will not be here. Cassandra smirked like she thought I was bluffing. Sure you will. You always are. That sentence hit harder than the humiliation. You always are. As if I was furniture? As if I was guaranteed. I excused myself and walked into the kitchen. The sliding door shut behind me, muffling the laughter outside. The dishwasher hummed. The sink was already full of used plates because no one carries their own dish inside. I leaned against the counter and let the silence settle. My phone buzzed in my apron pocket. I pulled it out without thinking. Instagram notifications stacked one after another. Comments, shares, new followers. I switched to my private account, the one none of them knew about. The username was not my name. My face was nowhere on the page, just photographs of jewelry designs, rings shaped like intertwined branches, minimalist gold cuffs, earrings that looked like falling constellations. I had started that page 3 years earlier after a breakup that left me feeling invisible. I did not know how to fix my life, so I started sketching. Then I learned design software. Then I began posting. slowly at first, then faster. 50,000 followers, then more. Strangers from all over the country commenting that my work made them feel seen, that my designs were elegant, strong, timeless. Women in their 60s writing that they had not bought themselves something beautiful in years until they saw my page. My family never asked what I did at night in my apartment. They assumed I watched television or scrolled mindlessly. Another notification popped up, a direct message from a verified account belonging to a well-known jewelry brand in New York. We would love to discuss licensing your latest collection. I stared at the message. Outside, Cassandra's voice rose above the music. She was describing the resort's infinity pool. I thought about the mornings I had cleaned up after her dogs, about the winter afternoon I slipped on ice while taking them out because she said she was too busy, about the way my mother once told a neighbor that I was lucky to live so close because it allowed me to help. Help. I opened the message again and read it slowly. We admire your aesthetic. Please contact us at the email below. My reflection stared back at me in the dark kitchen window. I looked tired, older than 32, smaller than I felt inside. Stay home. Keep the house clean. Take care of the dogs. The words echoed. I washed my hands slowly under warm water, dried them carefully. The laughter outside swelled again, someone clinking a glass. For years, I had believed that being useful was the same as being loved. That if I kept showing up, kept helping, kept smiling, eventually someone would notice. They noticed, just not in the way I hoped. I walked back toward the sliding door and watched my family through the glass for a moment before stepping outside again. My mother was telling a story about how proud she was of Cassandra's husband. My father nodded along. Cassandra held court at the center of the table, radiant. No one looked for me. That was the night something inside me went quiet. Not broken, not shattered, quiet. And in that quiet, I understood that if I stayed, nothing would ever change. I picked up my phone again, opened the message from the jewelry brand, and began typing a reply. That was the night I stopped being the help. That was the night I decided I would leave, and this time I would not come back. The next morning, the house smelled like coffee and lemon cleaner, like nothing unusual had happened at all. I woke up on the narrow guest bed in my old room, with the thin floral curtains my mother never changed, and for a few seconds I almost convinced myself I had imagined the night before. The string lights, the applause, Cassandra's voice telling me to stay home and take care of her dogs. My parents laughing like it was harmless. Then I heard my mother's heels clicking across the kitchen tile downstairs, brisk and purposeful, and Cassandra's voice floating through the hallway. We need to be at the airport by 8, she was saying. Derek wants to stop for coffee first. My name did not come up. I pulled on jeans and went downstairs out of habit because for 32 years, my body had learned to move before my pride did. The kitchen island was covered in open suitcases, sunscreen bottles, printed itineraries, and a folder labeled Maui in my mother's neat handwriting. My father sat at the breakfast table reading the Hartford paper glasses low on his nose. He did not look up when I entered. Morning Dulce, my mother said without turning around. Can you make a fresh pot of coffee? This one tastes burnt. It wasn't a request. I stood there for a moment longer than usual, long enough for the silence to stretch. Then I reached for the coffee grounds. Cassandra breezed in behind me, wearing leggings and a fitted travel jacket that looked like it belonged in an airport advertisement. You're up early, she said lightly, as if last night had been a toast about someone else's life. Good. I printed the feeding schedule for the dogs. It's on the counter. They need their supplements with breakfast, and don't forget Baxter's allergy drops on Wednesday. She slid a stapled packet toward me. On the front page, she had typed, "While we're in Hawaii," in bold. I looked down at it. Feeding times, grooming reminders, emergency vet contact instructions for wiping their paws before they came inside. You really thought this through, I said. Of course I did, she replied, adjusting her ponytail in the reflection of the microwave. We can't just leave things to chance. Things. My mother finally turned her expression tight but cheerful. We're counting on you next week, Dulcie. It's only fair. Cassandra and Derek need this time. They work so hard. My father cleared his throat behind his newspaper, but said nothing. I poured coffee into 4 mugs. I did not pour one for myself. The strangest part was how ordinary it all felt. No apology for the public dismissal, no conversation about whether I had plans, just the quiet assumption that I would step into the role they had already written for me. Cassandra flipped through a stack of travel confirmations. I can't believe we finally did this, she said. Maui has been on my vision board for years. Vision board. I almost laughed. At church luncheons, my mother liked to introduce her as Cassandra Whitford, married to a senior financial broker in New Haven. She would mention their lake house weekends, the children's private preschool, the golden retrievers, as if they were pedigree trophies. And then she would gesture vaguely toward me. This is Dulcie. She helps out. Helps out. I remembered one Sunday last spring when a woman from the choir had handed me an empty serving tray and asked if I could take it back to the kitchen with the catering staff. I had taken it without correcting her. My mother had smiled and continued her conversation as if she hadn't noticed. Thank you, sweetie, Cassandra said now, picking up her coffee without looking at me. For what? For being flexible. You don't have much going on next week anyway, right? The words landed softly, almost kindly, which somehow made them worse. I do have things going on, I said quietly. She laughed not cruelly, just dismissively. Like what? I opened my mouth, then closed it. My father folded his newspaper and stood. Let's not start, he said mildly. It's too early. Too early for what? For honesty. The rest of the morning unfolded the way our holidays always did. I wiped down counters while my mother reviewed packing lists. I loaded the dishwasher while Cassandra FaceTimed a friend about resort dinner reservations. I let the dogs out into the yard and picked up after them automatically, plastic bag in hand, the dew soaking through my sneakers. As I stood there in the cold grass, I thought about Thanksgiving. Every year I arrived at 6 in the morning. The sky still dark frost on the mailbox. I would rub butter under the turkey skin while my mother hovered with instructions. Chop the celery finer. Don't overcook the green beans. Use the Waterford crystal, not the everyday glasses. By noon, the house would smell like sage and roasting meat. Cassandra would sweep in with perfectly styled hair children in coordinated outfits and say it looks amazing in that breezy tone that meant she had not lifted a finger. Guests would praise the table setting. My mother would beam. Cassandra is such a natural hostess, someone once said. I had been standing at the sink rinsing a carving knife. Another year at Christmas, I had assembled a plastic play kitchen on the living room floor, while Cassandra filmed her children opening gifts for social media. Wrapping paper everywhere, my back aching. When I finally sat down, the turkey was cold. And last winter, when Baxter developed stomach issues, it was me outside at midnight in a snowstorm holding a leash, while Cassandra texted from her warm kitchen that she would owe me one. We should put you on payroll, she had joked once at a barbecue. Built-in help. Everyone had laughed. The sound echoed in my head now as I tied off the plastic bag and carried it to the trash. Back inside, my mother handed me a grocery list. Since you'll be here, can you pick up a few things midweek? Milk, fresh fruit, dog food if it runs low. She did not ask if I would be here. I set the list down slowly. I won't be here, I said. Cassandra glanced up from her phone. What do you mean? I have work, I replied. Part-time accounting isn't going anywhere, she said. You can do that from here. It was remarkable how easily my life shrank in their mouths. That's not what I meant. My father looked between us. Dulcie. But he did not finish the sentence. There had been signs long before last night, signs I chose not to see because seeing them would have required me to act. When I was 10, I brought home a report card with straight A's. My mother hugged me and said I was her steady girl. The following weekend, Cassandra won a regional dance competition, and we threw a party with balloons and cake and neighbors invited. I learned early that achievement earned applause. Reliability earned chores. Later, when I dated a man named Daniel for 3 years, he once told me you are always on call for them. He said it gently, not as an accusation, just an observation. I had defended my family then. Of course I help them. That's what daughters do. He had nodded slowly. And what do they do for you? I did not have an answer. In the kitchen, Cassandra finished her coffee and grabbed her keys. I'm heading to get a manicure before we leave, she said. Travel photos matter. Can you swing by PetSmart later for the salmon blend? The dogs prefer that. I stared at her for a long moment. You really think I'm staying, don't you? She frowned slightly. Why wouldn't you? Because I said I wasn't. Last night you were emotional, she replied, her voice tightening. You always take things too personally. Too personally. My father stepped in, then palms raised in a gesture that meant keep the peace. Let's not ruin the trip before it starts, he said. We can talk when we get back. That was the thing about my family. Difficult conversations were always postponed until after the next event, the next holiday, the next vacation. They assumed I would still be there when they returned. I picked up my purse from the counter. Where are you going? My mother asked. Home, I said. She blinked surprised. You're not staying for lunch? No. The word felt unfamiliar on my tongue. heavy, final. Cassandra sighed dramatically. Dulcie, don't be like this. It's just a week. The dogs adore you. I paused at the doorway. That's the problem, I said quietly. You all adore what I do, not who I am. No one followed me outside. I drove back to my apartment with the windows cracked, the early autumn air sharp against my face. My phone buzzed twice at a red light. I did not look at it. Inside my small living room, sunlight filtered across the coffee table where my sketchbook lay open from the night before. My laptop sat beside it, screen dark. I sank onto the couch and finally unlocked my phone. There it was, a message I had read a dozen times already. We would like to discuss licensing several of your designs. Please confirm availability within 48 hours. My anonymous page had grown quietly for 3 years. Tens of thousands of followers who did not know my last name, who did not know I scrubbed casserole dishes in Connecticut kitchens. Strangers saw my work. My family saw my availability. My phone buzzed again. A text from Cassandra. Don't forget the dogs need to be brushed every other day, and please air out the guest room before we get back. I stared at the words. For the first time in my life, I did not feel angry. I felt clear. They believed I would always circle back, always answer, always help. They had no idea I was already calculating the cost of leaving. I opened my laptop slowly, my reflection faint in the black screen before it flickered to life. Outside, a neighbor's lawnmower started up. Somewhere down the street, a child laughed. Inside my apartment, the air felt different, thinner, charged. They thought I was deciding whether to feed 2 golden retrievers next week. What I was actually deciding was whether I was done being the one who stayed. I rested my fingers on the keyboard and read the licensing message one more time. Then I took a slow breath and began to type. 3 years earlier, I had been sitting on the floor of that same apartment, staring at a blank wall and wondering how I had become so easy to overlook. Daniel had just closed the door behind him for the last time. He had not yelled. He had not cheated. He had simply looked tired. I love you, he said, but you never choose yourself. You are always there for everyone else. I don't know where you end and they begin. At the time, I thought he was being dramatic. Families help each other. Daughters show up. That is what I told him. But when the door clicked shut and the quiet settled over the room, his words did not leave with him. I remember sitting on the kitchen tile with my back against the cabinets, the hum of the refrigerator loud in the silence. I did not cry right away. I felt hollow, like someone had scooped out the middle of me and left the shell standing. My phone buzzed that night. It was my mother asking if I could come by the next morning to help her reorganize the pantry. Cassandra had a busy week. I typed yes automatically. Then I erased it. Instead of answering, I opened my laptop. I do not know what made me search how to design jewelry. It was not something anyone in my family did. It was not practical in the way accounting was practical. It did not fit the neat categories my parents respected. But I had always been drawn to small details, the curve of a clasp, the weight of a bracelet, the way metal caught light. I found free tutorials online, videos about basic design software, articles about stone settings and balance. I clicked one and let it play. That night, I stayed up until 2 in the morning watching strangers explain how to build something delicate from nothing. The next evening, instead of driving to my parents' house, I stayed home and downloaded a beginner design program. The screen glowed blue in the dark living room. My hands felt awkward on the mouse. The shapes I drew looked clumsy and uneven. Still, I saved the file. For weeks, I told no one. During the day, I worked part-time for small accounting clients. At night, I sketched on scrap paper. Rings with clean lines. Cuffs inspired by the curve of ocean waves I had only seen in photographs. Earrings shaped like open doors. I made a separate email address. Then an Instagram account under a name that meant nothing to anyone who knew me. The bio was simple. Designed for women who refuse to disappear. The first time I posted a digital rendering of a ring, I almost deleted it immediately. It looked small and insignificant on the screen. I had no followers. 10 people liked it in the first week. 2 left comments. One of them was from a woman in her 60s from Arizona. She wrote, "This feels strong without trying too hard, like it belongs to someone who knows who she is." I read that sentence over and over, strong without trying too hard. No one had ever described me that way. The account grew slowly at first. 20 followers, 50, 100. I would check it late at night after washing dishes at my parents' house, sitting in my car in their driveway with the engine off. Inside, I was dependable. Outside on that small square of the internet, I was becoming something else. I learned about proportions. I studied antique settings. I practiced until my wrists ached. I watched webinars about branding and intellectual property law that I barely understood. Cassandra once called at 10 in the evening while I was working on a design for a wide silver cuff. "Can you come over tomorrow and help me fold laundry?" she asked. The dogs shed everywhere and I'm exhausted. I stared at the unfinished piece on my screen. "I'm busy tomorrow night," I said carefully. "Busy with what?" "Work." "Accounting can wait," she replied. "Family can't." I swallowed. "I'll see what I can do." I ended up going. I folded tiny socks while she scrolled through her phone. The next morning, I woke early to finish the cuff design before logging into my accounting portal. That was how the double life began. Daytime Dulcie handled spreadsheets, errands, vet appointments, holiday menus. Nighttime Dulcie studied alloys and negative space. I kept my sketchbook hidden beneath old tax files in my closet. The account crossed 1,000 followers after a fashion blogger shared one of my posts. I remember sitting at my kitchen table when the notification number jumped so quickly I thought it was a glitch. Comments poured in, women asking if the pieces were available for purchase, women tagging their friends, women saying they had never seen jewelry that looked like it belonged to them instead of to a trend. I felt something shift inside my chest. At Thanksgiving that year, I arrived at 6 in the morning as usual. The turkey was heavy in my hands. My mother critiqued the way I arranged the place cards. Cassandra came in around noon, laughing, her coat still on. She kissed my cheek and said, "The house smells amazing, you're a lifesaver." Later, as I cleared dessert plates, she told one of the guests that I loved taking care of details. "It makes her feel useful," she said lightly. The word useful clung to me. That night, after everyone left, I sat in my car and checked my account. It had reached 10,000 followers. 10,000 strangers thought I created something beautiful. Inside the house, I was still just helpful. The first professional message arrived on a Tuesday evening. I was editing a design for a narrow gold band with a subtle ridge along the center when a direct message popped up from a verified account. "We admire your aesthetic and would like to discuss potential licensing opportunities." I assumed it was a scam. I clicked on their profile. It was a mid-sized jewelry brand based in New York. Real storefront, real following, blue check mark. My heart pounded so loudly I could hear it in my ears. I closed the app. I reopened it 5 minutes later. The message was still there. For 3 days, I did not respond. I told myself it was not serious. I told myself someone else more qualified would fit better. I told myself my family would laugh if they knew. At Sunday dinner that week, my father talked about investment returns. Cassandra complained about her spa membership increasing rates. My mother asked if I could come by Thursday to help reorganize the guest closet before Hawaii. I considered telling them then. "I have something going on," I almost said. "I am building something you do not know about." But Cassandra interrupted with a story about Derek's new client, and my mother turned the conversation toward travel insurance. "Dulcie is just figuring things out," my mother said at one point when someone asked about my work. "She has time." I pressed my fork into the mashed potatoes and said nothing. That night, I finally responded to the message. "Thank you for reaching out. I would be happy to discuss further." The reply came within an hour. They proposed a video meeting. They asked for additional renderings. They spoke to me as if my designs were assets. When the first small deposit hit my bank account as a preliminary review fee, I stared at the numbers on the screen in disbelief. It was not life-changing money. It would not impress my father, but it was mine. Not earned by cooking, not earned by cleaning, not earned by smoothing over someone else's inconvenience. Mine. I opened a separate savings account the next day. I told no one. Over the next year, the account grew faster than I expected. The brand tested one of my designs in a limited online release. It sold out in 2 days. My followers multiplied. 50,000, then more. Women sent messages saying they wore my pieces to job interviews, to milestone birthdays, to court hearings, where they finally asked for what they deserved. Sometimes, I would sit on my couch and read those messages with tears in my eyes. Meanwhile, my mother would call to ask if I could watch the dogs for a long weekend. Cassandra would text to remind me about Oliver's school fundraiser. No one asked why I seemed tired. No one asked what I did after midnight. The night before the anniversary party, I received another email from the brand. They wanted to expand the collaboration. They asked if I would consider attaching my real name to the next collection. Visibility meant exposure. Exposure meant my family would see. I stared at that question long after midnight. Then came the backyard party, the string lights, the applause, the dismissal. "You're not going anywhere. Stay home and take care of the dogs." As I sat in my apartment now with the licensing message open on my screen, Cassandra's text about dog supplements blinking above it, the contrast felt almost absurd. 48 hours, the brand had written. Please confirm availability. 48 hours. I pictured the feeding schedule stapled neatly on my parents' counter. I pictured my mother's tight smile. I pictured the email thread I did not yet know I would find. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. For 3 years, I had designed jewelry for women who refused to disappear. The question was no longer whether I was capable of building something. The question was whether I was ready to let my own name be seen. I inhaled slowly and typed my response. At the bottom of the email, after the professional signature I had used for so long, I added 2 words I had kept separate from my work. Dulcie Whitford. Then I hit send. And as the message whooshed out of my inbox, I realized something that felt both terrifying and freeing. If they thought I was staying behind to keep the house clean, they were about to discover how wrong they were. 2 days later, I walked back into my parents' house like nothing inside me had shifted, even though everything had. The front door was unlocked. It always was when my mother expected me. The smell of lavender polish and fresh laundry hung in the air. Suitcases stood open in the living room, half-packed beach hats stacked neatly on the couch. My mother's voice floated down the hallway. Dulcie, is that you? Yes, I called back. Good, she replied. I need you to double-check the dog's vaccination records. Cassandra thinks Baxter might be due for another booster. Of course she did. I set my purse down on the kitchen counter and paused. My mother's laptop sat open beside the fruit bowl. The screen had dimmed, but not gone dark. I was not looking for anything. I told myself that as I moved closer. I tapped the trackpad lightly. The screen brightened. An email inbox, my name in a subject line. Hawaii arrangements, Dulcie situation. For a moment, I simply stared at the words. My heart began to beat faster, not out of fear, but recognition. There it was. Proof that I had not imagined the way things were decided around me. I should have closed it. Instead, I clicked. The first message was from my mother to Cassandra, dated a week before the anniversary party. We need to keep Dulcie here while we are in Hawaii. It is simpler that way. She does not have anything important going on. Someone has to handle the house and the dogs. Below it, Cassandra's reply. Exactly. It works out better. If we tell her in advance, she might make it into a thing. It is easier to just announce it. She will get over it. My hands went cold. There was another message in the thread. Honestly, Mom, sometimes I think she likes being needed. It gives her something to do. At least she will feel useful. Useful? The word glared up at me from the screen like a brand. I scrolled further. There was a forwarded email attached to the thread. A conversation between my mother and an attorney whose name I vaguely recognized from church. The subject line read, Estate Update. My stomach tightened. In the message, my mother discussed updating their will. Cassandra was mentioned by name along with her children. The house, the savings accounts, the retirement fund. And then there was me. Dulce has no dependents and appears independent. We believe adjusting her portion slightly would be reasonable given her circumstances. Adjusting her portion slightly. No number was listed in that email, but the implication was clear. Practical, logical, clean, not equal. I felt as if someone had removed oxygen from the room. It was not about the money. It was about being counted. I read the lines again to make sure I had not misunderstood. She does not have anything important going on. She will get over it. Adjusting her portion. I lifted my phone slowly and took screenshots, one after another. My reflection faint in the glossy screen as I captured the words. I emailed them to myself. Then I cleared the browser history. Footsteps echoed down the hallway. I closed the laptop gently just as Cassandra entered the kitchen, sunglasses, perched on her head, car keys in hand. Did you find the vaccination records? She asked. Not yet, I replied evenly. She leaned against the counter and studied me for a second. You are not still upset about the trip, are you? It is just a week. I looked at her, really looked at her. The effortless confidence, the certainty that I would orbit back into place no matter what was said. It is not about a week, I said. She rolled her eyes slightly. Dulce, you always make things bigger than they are. You know Mom and Dad do not mean anything by it. I held her gaze. I know exactly what they mean. She shifted uncomfortably. Well, we all make sacrifices. I have 2 kids and 2 dogs. It is not like I'm relaxing all the time. You are going to Hawaii, I said quietly. She laughed a short, brittle sound. This is ridiculous. You are acting like we exiled you. It is just logistics. Logistics. I felt something settle inside me then. Not anger, not even hurt. Clarity. I picked up my purse. I will email you the vaccination records, I said. You can print them yourself. She frowned. What does that mean? It means I have other things to do. She opened her mouth as if to argue, then closed it. For the first time, I saw uncertainty flicker across her face. As I walked toward the door, my mother appeared in the hallway. Leaving already, she asked, surprised. Yes, we still need to go over the dog routine, she said, and I wanted to talk about midweek groceries. You should make other arrangements, I replied. Her eyebrows drew together. Do not start this again. I am not starting anything, I said calmly. I am just not staying. My father's voice drifted from the living room. Everything all right in there? Everything is fine, my mother called back quickly. It was not fine. I stepped outside into the late afternoon air. The sky was pale and cloudless. For years, I had walked out of that house feeling slightly smaller than when I entered. This time, I felt taller. In my car, I reopened the screenshots. I read the lines again slower now. If we tell her in advance, she might make it into a thing. I did not want to make it into a thing. I wanted to make it into a choice. My phone buzzed. An email notification from the jewelry brand. We are excited to move forward. Please review the attached draft licensing agreement and confirm your availability for a video call this Friday. The document icon sat below the message like a door. I looked up at my parents' house through the windshield. Curtains drawn, suitcases visible through the window. A life that ran smoothly because I filled the gaps. They had already planned to exclude me from a vacation. They had quietly considered excluding me from an inheritance. And they believed I would continue cleaning their floors. I started the engine. At home that night, I printed the licensing agreement and spread the pages across my kitchen table. Percentages, production rights, royalty structures. It was serious, real. I opened a new tab and began searching rental listings in Savannah, Georgia, where the brand's regional office was located. Small apartments near the historic district, studio spaces with exposed brick and wide windows. The numbers did not terrify me. They energized me. I transferred a portion of my savings into a separate account labeled business expenses. Then I opened my calendar. 48 hours. My phone buzzed again. Cassandra, did you pick up the salmon blend for the dogs? I stared at the message. No, I typed back. I will not be handling the dogs. 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. What does that mean? It means you need to figure it out. The response did not come right away. I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. For years, I had believed confrontation meant raised voices and slammed doors. What I was beginning to understand was that sometimes confrontation was a quiet refusal. I returned to the licensing agreement and signed my name on the digital line, Dulcie Whitford. Then I attached it to an email and pressed send. On my laptop screen, the message confirmation appeared. Agreement received. We look forward to working with you. Outside, a car drove past. Somewhere upstairs, a neighbor turned on the television. My phone began vibrating again. This time, it was my mother. I let it ring. Then it rang again. I let it ring. I placed the phone face down on the table and stared at the printed rental listing beside me. 1 bedroom, brick walls, walking distance to the river. I ran my finger along the edge of the paper. They had assumed I would stay because I always had. What they did not understand was that the moment I read those emails, something inside me had already left. And the only question now was how quickly the rest of me would follow. The morning they left for Hawaii, the sky was a soft gray, and the house was louder than usual. Suitcases thudded against the hallway walls. The dogs barked in excitement, sensing movement but not understanding departure. My mother moved briskly between rooms with a clipboard in hand, checking items off a list as if she were preparing for a military operation instead of a vacation. I stood in the kitchen, not as help, not as staff, but as an observer. Dulcie, my mother, called without looking at me. Can you make sure the trash goes out before we leave? No, I said calmly. She stopped mid-step and turned slowly. What do you mean, no? I mean, I am not staying here. Cassandra appeared from the hallway, sunglasses on travel tote slung over her shoulder. Are we still doing this? She asked with a tight smile. The car is coming in 20 minutes. Yes, I replied. We are still doing this. My father stood near the front door holding his carry-on. He looked from me to my mother as if trying to calculate the least disruptive response. Dulcie, he said, this is not the time. It is exactly the time, I answered. The dogs circled around Cassandra's legs, tails wagging. Who is feeding them tomorrow morning? She asked, her voice rising. You are going to have to figure that out, I said. You cannot just leave us like this. I met her eyes. You left me like that at the party. Silence settled between us, thick and uncomfortable. My mother's face hardened. This is incredibly selfish, she said. We planned this months ago. We are depending on you. You did not ask me. Family should not have to ask, she snapped. That is the problem, I replied quietly. The driver's horn sounded outside. Cassandra grabbed her suitcase. We will talk when we get back, she said sharply. You will calm down by then. I almost smiled. I am not upset, I said. I am done. They left without another word. The front door closed. The engine of the car faded down the street. For the first time in years, the house was not waiting for me to fill it. I walked through the kitchen slowly. The printed dog schedule still sat on the counter. I picked it up and folded it in half, then in half again. I placed it beside the fruit bowl and walked out. Back in my apartment, I did not sit down. I moved. I opened my closet and pulled out 2 suitcases. I folded clothes deliberately, not in a rush, not in panic. Jeans, blouses, my favorite navy dress. The one I wore when I needed to feel composed. I wrapped my sketchbook in a soft sweater and placed it carefully on top of my laptop. My phone buzzed. 3 missed calls from my mother, 2 from Cassandra, a text from Cassandra. You are being unreasonable. The dogs are already anxious. Another text, at least answer mom. I turned the phone face down on the dresser and continued packing. I took the apron from the back of my kitchen chair, the one I had worn to every holiday gathering, and folded it neatly. I did not put it in the suitcase. I left it on the counter. Next, I drove back to my parents' house one last time. The driveway was empty. The house felt strangely hollow without their constant movement. I walked into the kitchen and placed a handwritten letter on the island. I am not available to house sit or dog sit. I am moving to pursue my business full time. Please make other arrangements. I signed it Dulcie Whitford. Not Sweetie, not just Dulcie. I placed my spare house key on top of the envelope. For a moment, I stood there looking at the counters I had wiped 1,000 times. The sink I had scrubbed, the stove I had polished. No one would notice the difference immediately, but they would. I left quietly. Back in my apartment, my laptop chimed. A calendar invite for a video meeting with the jewelry brand executives. Friday at 10. I changed into the navy dress and sat at my kitchen table back straight. When the call connected, 3 faces appeared on the screen. 2 women and 1 man, all professional, all focused. Thank you for joining us, one of the women said. We have been reviewing your portfolio extensively. Hearing the word portfolio made my chest tighten. Your aesthetic is distinct, she continued. Clean lines, bold but restrained. We believe there is room for a limited launch collection under your name, under my name. We would begin with 6 pieces, the man added. Royalty structure is outlined in the agreement. If initial sales perform well, we expand. I listened carefully. I asked questions. I took notes. No one interrupted me. No one said I was being dramatic. No one asked if I had something better to do. At the end of the call, the woman smiled. We are excited about this collaboration, Dulcie. I closed the laptop and sat still for a long time. My phone buzzed again. Voicemail from my mother. Dulcie, where are you? The dogs are barking nonstop. This is not funny. Another voicemail followed. Your father is upset. We did not expect this from you. I pressed delete without listening to the rest. Then I opened a rental application for a small apartment in Savannah. Exposed brick walls, high ceilings, walking distance to the river. I filled out the form carefully. Income projections, business references, licensing agreement attached as proof of contract. My hands trembled slightly when I submitted it. Later that afternoon, I loaded my suitcases into the trunk of my car. The sky had cleared into a bright autumn blue. As I closed the trunk, my phone rang again. This time, it was my father. I answered. Where are you? He asked, his voice tired rather than angry. On my way south, I said. You are serious about this? Yes. There was a pause. The house feels strange already, he admitted. I swallowed. It will be an adjustment. You could have told us sooner. I did tell you, I said gently. You just did not believe me. Another pause. Your mother is very upset. I know. He sighed. Be careful. It was not an apology. It was not approval. But it was something. I ended the call and started the engine. The highway stretched ahead of me, long and open. I did not look back in the rearview mirror this time. My phone vibrated one more time before I merged onto the interstate. A notification from the rental agency. Application approved. Lease ready for signature. I let out a slow breath I had been holding for years. The house in Connecticut would discover what it meant to function without me. The dogs would need a new plan. The kitchen would need another pair of hands. But for the first time, my hands were building something that belonged entirely to me. As the state line sign approached in the distance, I felt the weight of the last 32 years begin to loosen. I pressed the accelerator gently and kept driving. By the time I crossed into Georgia, the air felt heavier and warmer, and the silence inside my car felt like something I had chosen instead of something forced on me. I reached Savannah just before sunset. The brick buildings along the river caught the light in a way Connecticut never did. My new apartment sat above a small bakery on a quiet street lined with live oaks. Spanish moss hung from the branches like soft, gray lace. The landlord met me at the door, handed over the keys, and wished me luck with my new business. He did not ask why I was there. He did not assume I was helping anyone. Inside the apartment was empty, except for sunlight and the faint smell of fresh paint. I set my suitcase down in the center of the living room and stood still. No one needed breakfast. No one needed their dogs walked. No one needed the trash taken out. My phone buzzed. 12 missed calls, 5 voicemails, 3 texts from Cassandra. I sat on the floor and listened to the first voicemail. Dulce, where are you? Your letter was on the counter. What is this supposed to mean? We are already at the airport. Her voice was sharp at first. The second voicemail was less controlled. The dogs are barking, and Mrs. Callahan next door says she will call animal control if they do not quiet down. Why would you do this today of all days? The third voicemail was my mother. I cannot believe you embarrassed us like this. The driver was already here. We had to scramble to call a kennel at the last minute. This is cruel. Cruel. I leaned my head back against the wall and closed my eyes. The fourth voicemail was my father. We made it onto the flight. Call us when you can. We need to talk. I did not call. Instead, I stood up and opened the windows. Warm air drifted in carrying the scent of sugar and bread from downstairs. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell rang. I unpacked slowly. I placed my sketchbook on the kitchen counter. I set my laptop near the window where the light was strongest. I hung my navy dress in the closet like a marker of who I was becoming. By morning, my phone had quieted down. Then it started again. A text from Cassandra. The kennel is charging a fortune. Baxter chewed through the trim in the hallway before we left. This is your fault. I typed a response, then erased it. Instead, I made coffee and stepped out onto the small balcony. The street below was calm. A woman walked her dog past the bakery. A delivery truck unloaded flour. No one here knew my history. At 10 that morning, I joined another video call with the jewelry brand. This time, the conversation felt different, less theoretical. We would like to fast-track the first collection, the lead designer said. The engagement on your account is strong. I nodded. We are also considering announcing you publicly rather than continuing under anonymity. There is value in authenticity. I hesitated. Going public means my family will see everything. She studied me through the screen. Is that a problem? It might be, I admitted. We believe your story is part of the brand, she said gently. Women respond to that. Story. Back in Connecticut, my absence was already creating one. Later that afternoon, I received a text from an old neighbor. Everything okay? Your mom posted something odd on Facebook. My chest tightened. I opened the app. Cassandra had written a long post. Some people forget who was there for them when they were struggling. Family should come first. We are disappointed but not surprised. There was no name attached, but it did not need one. Comments poured in. Prayers for you. Kids today are selfish. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. My mother added her own comment. We did everything for our daughters. Some gratitude would have been nice. Gratitude. I set the phone down carefully. Downstairs, the bakery door chimed as customers came and went. Upstairs, my quiet apartment held steady. I walked to the bathroom sink and splashed cool water on my face. They were not calling to ask if I had arrived safely. They were not asking how I felt. They were rewriting the narrative. That evening, the brand sent over early drafts of marketing copy for the collection. They wanted a short biography. I sat at my small kitchen table and typed. Dulcie Whitford designs pieces for women who claim their own space. Her work explores strength without excess and elegance without apology. I did not mention Connecticut. I did not mention golden retrievers. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Cassandra. Mom is devastated. Church board members are asking questions. How could you air our business like this? Air our business. I had not posted a single thing. I replied once. I did not air anything. You did. The typing bubble appeared instantly. You abandoned us right before a major trip. What did you expect? I set the phone down and did not respond again. The next morning, my father called. I answered. Your mother is under a lot of stress, he said. The house feels upside down. I could picture it. No breakfast laid out. No dishwasher emptied. No quiet hands picking up what others dropped. You will figure it out, I said. He was quiet. The hardwood floors are scratched, he added after a moment. The dogs were anxious. The kennel refused to take them at first. I waited. We did not realize how much you handled, he said almost reluctantly. That was the first honest sentence I had heard. I am not coming back, I told him. I did not ask you to, but you expected it. He did not deny that. Later that day, I met with a local attorney recommended by the brand just to understand my position. Not to sue, not to escalate. He explained calmly that vague posts were difficult to challenge legally, but false claims about finances could cross a line. Keep records, he advised. Protect yourself. Protect yourself. It sounded foreign and necessary. That night, I drafted a short statement and posted it on my account. I left to build my business independently. I love my family, but I needed to choose my own path. Success does not mean abandonment. Within minutes, the comments filled with support. Women wrote about being unpaid caretakers for years, about being expected to show up without question, about finally saying no. One message stayed with me. You did not leave them. You left the role they assigned you. I read that line twice. The next morning, Cassandra deleted her original post. My mother stopped commenting publicly. Silence returned. But it was a different kind of silence now, not the one I had lived inside for years. This one belonged to me. I stood at my window watching the sun rise over the river and realized something simple. Their house without me was not falling apart because I was dramatic. It was falling apart because I had been holding it together, and for the first time in my life, I was letting it stand on its own. The quiet did not last. 3 days after Cassandra deleted her first post, my phone lit up before I even poured my morning coffee. Notifications stacked on top of each other, names I barely recognized tagging me in screenshots. I opened the first message. Did you see what your sister wrote this time? I had not. I clicked the image. Cassandra had posted again longer this time, less vague. She wrote about loyalty and sacrifice, about parents who gave everything to their children, about one daughter who chased attention instead of standing by family when it mattered most. Then she added a line that made my stomach drop. It must be nice to build a business using the stability your parents provided only to turn around and act like you did it alone. The comments were already multiplying. Some defended her, some questioned her. A few asked outright if she was talking about me. I sat down slowly at my small kitchen table in Savannah and felt something tighten in my chest. Stability your parents provided. I had paid my own rent since I was 22. I had taken student loans for my accounting degree. I had bought my own car. I had never borrowed money from them for my designs. But perception travels faster than facts. My phone rang. It was the brand's PR manager. We need to talk, she said as soon as I answered. Her tone was not panicked, but it was alert. This is starting to circulate beyond local groups. We need to make sure there are no claims that could damage the launch. She asked directly if any of the funding for my business came from my family. No, I said firmly. Not a dollar. Good, she replied. Because if accusations shift toward financial dishonesty, that becomes something we have to address legally. Legally. The word hung heavy between us. After the call ended, I opened the post again and read it more carefully. Cassandra never named me. She did not need to. The timing was obvious, the implication clear. A former church member had commented, "We always wondered how she could afford to just leave like that." There it was, the narrative forming. That afternoon, I received a private message from my mother. "You have embarrassed us enough. People are asking questions at church. I hope you are satisfied." Satisfied? I stared at the word. "I am not doing this to embarrass you," I typed back. "Then what are you doing?" she replied almost immediately. "I am protecting myself." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. "You would not have a business without this family," she wrote. That sentence landed harder than Cassandra's post. Without this family. I set the phone down and paced the apartment. For years, I had minimized things in my own mind. It is not that bad. They do not mean it. They are just traditional. But this was not tradition. This was control. My follower count ticked upward while I walked. 100,000 crossed sometime that afternoon. I noticed only because the number looked unreal. Strangers saw strength. My family saw betrayal. The brand sent over a draft announcement for the collection. My real name centered beneath the logo. "We would like to publish next week," the email said. "Are you comfortable moving forward?" Comfortable. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with the screenshots of my mother's emails open on my laptop. The ones about keeping me home, about adjusting my portion. I could post them. I could end the speculation with a single image. But I did not want to destroy them. I wanted the truth clear without cruelty. Instead, I drafted a short public statement. I left to build my business independently. I have never taken financial support from my family for this work. I love them, but I needed to create boundaries. I read it aloud to myself before posting it. It sounded steady. I hit share. Within minutes, the comments shifted. Women in their 50s and 60s wrote about leaving corporate jobs to start small businesses, about adult children who expected free babysitting, about siblings who confused availability with obligation. One comment stood out. Some families call it help when it is really dependency. I exhaled slowly. An hour later, Cassandra commented directly under my statement. You are twisting this. No one said you could not work. We just expected you to show up like families should. The thread grew heated. One woman asked her why she had not hired professional help for the dogs. Another asked why a grown woman needed her sister to manage her household. Cassandra stopped responding. The next morning, a small Savannah lifestyle blog reached out asking if they could feature my story about building a business after family conflict. It felt surreal. In Connecticut, I was the dependable daughter. In Georgia, I was the designer who walked away. That evening, my father called. I answered. Your sister is upset, he said quietly. She is the one posting publicly, I replied. He sighed. This has gotten out of hand. It got out of hand when she questioned my integrity. There was a long pause. Your mother did not expect this reaction from people, he admitted. From people, meaning church members, neighbors, friends who had quietly agreed that daughters should sacrifice without complaint. The house feels different, he added. We had to hire someone to help in the mornings. It is not cheap. I did not say I know. He cleared his throat. You could have handled this privately. I tried for years to handle things privately, I said. It never changed anything. He did not argue. After we hung up, I walked along the river as the sun set behind the old brick warehouses. The air smelled faintly of salt and sugar. I realized something as I watched the water move. They were not angry because I left. They were angry because I left visibly. Back in my apartment, I received another email from the brand. Pre-orders are exceeding projections. We would like to schedule a small launch event and potentially have you speak about your journey. Speak. For most of my life, I had kept my head down. Now I was being asked to stand up. My phone buzzed again. A screenshot from a former neighbor in Connecticut. Cassandra had limited comments on her post. The thread had turned against her. Underneath, someone had written, maybe she is not selfish, maybe she is just done. I placed the phone on the counter and looked at my reflection in the dark window. For years, I had been the easy one, the quiet one, the reliable one. Now I was something else. Not loud, not reckless, just unwilling to shrink. I opened the folder on my laptop where I had saved the email screenshots. I backed them up to secure storage. If they pushed further, I would not stand silent, because this was no longer about dogs or vacations or even inheritance. It was about who controlled the story of my life, and for the first time, I was not handing that control back. The launch event was scheduled for a Thursday evening, and I could feel the shift in my life long before I stepped into the venue. It was held in a restored brick warehouse near the river, soft lighting strung across exposed beams, glass display cases arranged in careful rows. My pieces sat on velvet stands under warm lights, gold catching and reflecting the room like quiet fire. I arrived early, palms slightly damp, wearing a simple emerald dress and one of my own necklaces. The weight of it against my collarbone felt grounding. The brand's creative director greeted me with a hug. Pre-orders doubled again this morning, she said. You are resonating with people. Resonating. For years, I had only resonated inside a kitchen, inside a family routine. Now strangers were lining up outside to see work I had built in silence. As guests filtered in, I noticed the mix. Younger women in tailored blazers, older women in elegant coats and pearls, couples, bloggers, a few local business owners. I spoke to each of them not rehearsed, not dramatic. I told them I designed pieces for women who wanted to take up space without apology. Halfway through the evening, a local television reporter approached. We would love a short segment, she said. 10 minutes about your transition from private designer to public brand. Transition, I nodded. The camera light blinked red. She asked how long I had been designing. 3 years, I answered. She asked why I had chosen to go public now. Because I realized staying small was not protecting anyone, I said. It was only protecting expectations. I did not mention my sister. I did not mention the dogs. But I knew Connecticut would see this. After the interview aired online the next morning, my inbox exploded. Orders, invitations, interview requests. Then came the text from my mother. "We saw you on television." No greeting, no congratulations, just acknowledgement. "Thank you," I replied. A minute later, "You should have told us you were going to speak publicly." I stared at the screen. "You spoke publicly first," I typed back. No response came. Instead, a call from Cassandra that evening. I answered after letting it ring twice. "So now you are a celebrity," she said, her voice tight. "I am a designer," I replied calmly. She laughed softly. "You made us look like villains. I never named you. You did not have to." There it was again. The anger not about what I had done, but about what I had stopped doing. "You embarrassed Mom at church," she continued. "People are whispering. People are whispering because you posted about me first," I said. I responded with facts. "You could have kept it private. I tried for years." Silence stretched between us. "Do you even care about this family anymore?" she asked finally. "I care about myself too," I said. That seemed to offend her more than anything. The call ended without resolution. 2 days later, a larger regional news outlet picked up the story, a feature about women entrepreneurs who rebuilt their lives after family conflict. My photo sat beside the headline, claiming her own design. The article mentioned my move to Savannah, my anonymous account, the decision to reveal my name. It did not attack my family, but it made clear I had left a dynamic that limited me. By afternoon, my father called. His voice sounded older than I remembered. "You are everywhere," he said. "It feels that way. Your mother is overwhelmed." I did not respond immediately. "You are proud, though," he added quickly, almost defensively. "We are proud?" The word felt fragile. "Proud of what?" I asked quietly. "Of you succeeding," he said. Before or after the news coverage, I wondered. That night, Cassandra posted again. This time, she attached a photo of our childhood home. The caption read, "We raised her here. We gave her everything. And this is how she repays us." The comments divided sharply. Some defended her. Others questioned why a successful woman leaving home required public condemnation. One comment caught my eye. Maybe she left because she was tired of being treated like free help. I did not know who wrote it, but it felt like truth moving through the cracks. The next morning, the brand's legal advisor called. "Your sister's recent post implies financial dependence," he said. "That could impact contracts if left unchecked." I felt the old tightness in my chest return. "What do you recommend?" "A formal cease and desist if it continues," he replied. "We cannot allow defamatory suggestions about funding or dishonesty." Defamatory. The situation was escalating beyond emotion into territory that involved lawyers and reputation. That afternoon, I received an email from my father. It was longer than usual. "Dulcie, this has gone too far. Cassandra is emotional. Your mother feels attacked. We do not want this to damage your career. Your career, not our relationship." I read the email twice. Then I opened the folder of screenshots again. For a moment, I considered sending them to him. Let him see in black and white what had been said about me. Instead, I wrote back, "I do not want to fight publicly, but I will defend myself if necessary." He responded within minutes. "Understood." That was the first time I felt he was speaking to me as an adult rather than as a role. That evening, I walked through Forsyth Park under the glow of old street lamps. Couples strolled, children ran across the grass. A violinist played softly near the fountain. My phone buzzed again. A message from Cassandra. "Are you threatening us with lawyers now?" "No," I replied. "I am protecting my name." She sent back a single line. "You used to be different." Yes, I thought. I used to be smaller. Back in my apartment, I sat at my desk and began sketching a new design. A bracelet with clean interlocking lines, each piece separate yet strong when joined. I named it Boundaries in my notebook. As I drew, I understood something clearly. They were trying to pull me back not with love, but with pressure, with guilt, with fear of losing reputation. But reputation built on silence was not worth keeping. The following morning, a national jewelry blog requested an exclusive interview. The headline draft they shared read, "From invisible designer to industry disruptor." Industry disruptor. I smiled slightly at that. In Connecticut, I had disrupted only the morning routine. In Georgia, I was disrupting something else entirely. When I finally went to bed that night, my phone rested silent beside me. For the first time since I left, the noise felt external rather than internal. And as I closed my eyes, I knew the next move would not be theirs. It would be mine. The cease and desist letter went out on a Monday morning. I did not draft it alone. The brand's legal advisor handled the language precise and unemotional, outlining the false implications about financial support and the potential damage to my professional reputation. It was not dramatic. It was not cruel. It was clear. By noon, Cassandra had received it. By 1 o'clock, my phone rang. I let it ring 3 times before answering. "Are you serious right now?" she demanded, skipping any greeting. "You actually had a lawyer send me a letter. I asked you to stop implying things that are not true," I said evenly. "I never named you." "You did not have to." Her breathing was sharp in my ear. "You are humiliating us, Dulcie." "No," I replied quietly. "I am correcting you." She scoffed. "You used to care about what people thought. I used to care about keeping peace at my own expense." Silence stretched between us. "Mom is crying," she said finally. "She cannot believe you would go this far." I closed my eyes for a moment. I did not go far. I moved. She hung up without another word. 2 hours later, my father called. His voice was measured, tired. "Was this necessary?" he asked. "Yes." He exhaled slowly. "Your sister feels attacked." "She attacked me publicly," I said. I responded privately first. She did not stop. He did not argue with that. "You know this will change things," he added. "Things already changed the day you laughed when she told me to stay home with her dogs." The line went quiet. I heard him swallow. "That was not meant to hurt you," he said. "It did." There was a long pause. We did not realize how it sounded. I almost laughed, but there was no humor in it. It sounded exactly how it was. That evening, Cassandra deleted the second post. The first one had already disappeared. She did not apologize publicly. She simply erased. The next morning, I received an unexpected email from a national lifestyle magazine. "We are preparing a feature on adult daughters redefining family expectations. We would like to include your perspective." I read the email twice before replying yes. The interview was scheduled for Thursday afternoon. The writer was in her early 60s, sharp and warm at the same time. She listened more than she spoke. "Tell me about the party," she said gently. I described the backyard, the clinking glasses, the laughter. I described asking about the flight. I described the way my parents laughed. She did not interrupt. "And what did you feel in that moment?" she asked. "Like furniture," I said after a pause. "Useful, but not essential." She nodded slowly. "Many women your age and older will recognize that feeling," she said. Older. For the first time, I understood why so many women in their 50s and 60s were writing to me. They had lived entire decades in that space. After the interview, I walked along the river again. The wind off the water was stronger that day. It pushed against me, but did not knock me over. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Your father showed me the letter. I did not raise you to threaten your own family." I stared at the message. "You raised me to be strong," I replied. A minute later, "Strong does not mean disloyal, and loyalty does not mean silence," I sent back. She did not respond. The magazine feature went live the following week. The headline read, "When No is Not Betrayal." My photo filled half the page. The article did not accuse my family of abuse. It did not exaggerate. It simply told the story of a woman who stopped being automatically available. Within hours, the piece was shared across social media platforms far beyond Savannah. Comments flooded in from women across the country. "I wish I had done this at 32. It took me 60 years to say no. Thank you for showing it is possible." I read every message. By evening, my follower count climbed again. Then came the email from my father. 3 sentences. I read the article. "I understand more now. I am sorry we did not see it sooner." I sat at my kitchen table and read those lines again and again. Sorry. Not defensive, not conditional. Sorry. I did not respond immediately. I let the words settle. Later that night, Cassandra sent a single text. "Mom is furious." Church board members forwarded the article to her. I did not answer. Instead, I opened my sketchbook and began outlining a new collection. Pieces inspired by the idea of inheritance. Not financial inheritance, but emotional inheritance. What do we carry because it was handed to us? What do we put down? As I drew, another notification appeared. The brand had secured a placement for my collection in a high-end department store. The launch would be national. National! I leaned back in my chair and let out a long breath. In Connecticut, the house was reportedly quiet. The new morning helper had quit after 2 weeks. Cassandra had hired a cleaning service. The dogs were enrolled in obedience training. My absence was no longer a temporary inconvenience. It was a permanent adjustment. The following Sunday, my father called again. "Your mother wants to speak with you," he said. "Is she ready to listen?" I asked. There was a pause. "I do not know," he admitted. Then I will wait. He sighed softly. You have changed, Dulcie. I have grown, I corrected. He did not argue. After we hung up, I stood by the window watching a thunderstorm roll over the river. Lightning split the sky briefly, then disappeared. Growth often looks like conflict before it looks like peace. My phone remained quiet for the rest of the night. But I knew this was not the end. Success had shifted the power dynamic. They could no longer dismiss me, and that meant the next conversation would not be about dogs or posts or letters. It would be about something deeper, and I was finally ready for it. The call came on a quiet Tuesday afternoon while I was reviewing final samples for the national store rollout. It was my mother. I stared at her name on the screen longer than usual before answering. Hello. Her voice sounded different, softer but strained. Dulce, we need to talk. I waited. Not about the articles, not about the posts, about something practical. Practical. I set the bracelet I had been inspecting back into its velvet box. What is it, Mom? Your father met with the estate planner yesterday, she said carefully. We are updating our will. The word hung in the air, and she continued. We need to know if you are planning to cut yourself off from the family entirely. There it was, the unspoken fear. I am not cutting myself off, I said. I am living independently. She exhaled sharply. You have not visited. You have not called regularly. People assume something terrible happened. Something did happen, I replied quietly. She did not argue. The house feels empty without you, she said after a pause. Not just physically, different. I pictured the kitchen island where I had left the letter, the mornings without coffee brewing before anyone else woke up. Change feels uncomfortable, I said. Your sister is angry, she added. Cassandra has been angry since I stopped agreeing. There was a silence that felt heavier than the previous ones. The will divides everything equally, she said finally. But if you intend to sever ties, it complicates things. Inheritance. It had not crossed my mind since I left. Are you asking if I'm staying for money? I asked. Her voice tightened. Do not twist my words. I am not twisting anything. I am asking directly. Another pause. No, she admitted. I suppose I am asking if you still consider yourself part of this family? I leaned back in my chair and looked at the sketches scattered across my desk. I am your daughter, I said. That does not change. But I am no longer the built-in solution for your household problems. She was quiet for a long moment. You were always so dependable, she said softly. We relied on that. I know. Reliance can turn into expectation without anyone noticing. She did not deny that. After we hung up, I sat still for several minutes. Inheritance had never been the goal, yet the fact that it was raised now told me something. When I was useful, my place was unquestioned. When I stepped away, my position required clarification. Later that evening, Cassandra called. I almost let it go to voicemail. Then I answered. So now you are threatening to remove yourself from the will, she said bluntly. I never said that. Mom is worried you will make a scene if something happens to them. A scene, I laughed softly. The only scenes in this family happened when I stopped cleaning up quietly. She did not appreciate that. You have changed, Dulcie. Yes. You used to put family first. I used to put myself last. Silence. Do you even care what happens to the house, she asked. The property taxes are rising. Maintenance is expensive. Dad cannot handle everything. I understood then. This was not just emotional. It was practical. For years, I had managed paperwork, scheduled repairs, negotiated service contracts. You can hire a property manager, I said. That costs money. So does pretending one person can carry it all for free. She sighed loudly. You always make it sound like we exploited you? You did not mean to, I replied calmly. But you did. Another pause. If Mom and Dad leave the house to both of us, what happens? Then she asked. We sell it, I said simply. Or you buy me out. The idea seemed to unsettle her. You would sell our childhood home. If I am not living there, yes, you are ruthless. No, I said quietly. I am realistic. The call ended without resolution. That night, I received an email from the estate planner. My father had added me to the distribution list. Attached was a summary draft. Equal shares, clear asset breakdown. No conditions tied to proximity or involvement. It was straightforward. For years, I had assumed fairness meant sameness, equal gifts, equal holidays. Now I understood fairness meant autonomy. The next morning, I visited the local department store where my collection would debut nationally. Seeing my name printed on signage beside polished glass cases felt surreal. A woman in her late 60s approached me while I adjusted a display. "Are you the designer?" she asked. "Yes." She touched one of the necklaces gently. "I read your article," she said. "I left my hometown at 35. Best decision I ever made." Her eyes held something steady and certain. "Sometimes you have to walk away from the room where they decided who you were," she added. I nodded. That afternoon, my father called again. "We finalized the will," he said. "Okay, you are included equally. I never asked to be excluded." He hesitated. "Your mother wanted to attach a clause about family obligations. I advised against it. A clause." I felt my chest tighten briefly. "Thank you," I said. He cleared his throat. "You know," he continued, "your grandmother left home at 19 to start over in another state. We rarely talk about it." "I did not know that." "She was stubborn," he said almost fondly. "Maybe she was brave," I replied. He did not argue. After we hung up, I sat at my desk and looked at the sketches for the inheritance collection again. I realized something quietly powerful. For the first time, my place in the family was not tied to what I provided daily. It was defined on paper legally, without conditions. That did not fix everything, but it shifted the balance. My phone buzzed one more time before I went to bed. A text from Cassandra. "Mom says the house is quieter without you. The dogs sleep more now." I read the message twice. "Maybe they are less anxious," I typed back. She did not respond. I placed the phone face down on my nightstand and stared at the ceiling. The inheritance conversation had not broken us. It had clarified us. And clarity, even when uncomfortable, is harder to undo than silence. The invitation arrived in a plain white envelope with my mother's handwriting across the front. No return address, no note inside beyond a single card. "Thanksgiving, 4 o'clock. We would like you there." I sat at my kitchen table in Savannah holding it for a long time. For years, I had arrived at my parents' house before sunrise on Thanksgiving. Turkey brining in the sink, pie dough chilling. My mother directing from the dining room table while I moved between stove and oven. Now I was being invited as a guest. Or so it seemed. I called my father that evening. "Is this an actual invitation?" I asked, "or am I expected to cook?" He did not laugh. "It is an invitation," he said. "We hired catering." Catering. The word felt almost surreal. "Your mother insisted," he added. "She said it would be different this year." Different. I thought about the article, the will, the lawyer's letter, the silence that had followed. "I will consider it," I said. "You are welcome," he replied quietly. Over the next few days, Cassandra sent no messages, no passive remarks, no subtle jabs online. It felt deliberate. The brand's national rollout launched the week before Thanksgiving. Sales numbers exceeded projections. My inbox filled with orders and interview requests. On Wednesday night, I packed a small suitcase. Not with aprons, with clothes. I drove north early Thanksgiving morning. The highway felt familiar but distant at the same time. When I pulled into my parents' driveway at 3:45, the house looked exactly the same. 2 golden retrievers barked at the window. My stomach tightened. I rang the doorbell. My mother opened the door. For a moment, neither of us spoke. "You look well," she said finally. "So do you," I replied. The house smelled like roasted turkey, but not from my hands. The dining table was set. Catered trays lined the kitchen counters. My father stood near the living room fireplace, hands in his pockets. "Happy Thanksgiving," he said. Cassandra stood by the window. She wore a cream sweater and looked older somehow. Or maybe just more guarded. "Hi," she said. "Hi." No one mentioned Hawaii. No one mentioned lawyers. We sat at the table. I waited instinctively for my mother to tell me to refill glasses. She did not. The meal began. Conversation stayed shallow at first. Weather, business, church events. Then my father cleared his throat. Before dessert, he said, "I want to say something." My shoulders tensed. "This year has been difficult," he continued, "for all of us. But I realize now that we relied on Dulce in ways we should not have." My mother's jaw tightened slightly. "We assumed," he went on, "that because she was available, she was obligated." Silence settled over the table. Cassandra stared down at her plate. I did not know what to say. My mother spoke next. "We did not intend to make you feel lesser," she said, her voice careful. "But intention does not erase impact." It was not dramatic. It was not tearful. It was measured. "I appreciate that," I said. Cassandra finally looked up. "I should not have posted those things," she said quietly. "I was angry." "You were embarrassed," I replied. "Yes." She swallowed. I did not realize how it looked at the party. It looked like I was not family. The words hung between us. She did not deny it. I thought you liked helping, she said after a moment. I liked being valued. My mother's eyes softened slightly. We are learning, she said. Learning? For years, I had waited for that word. After dessert, my mother stood and began clearing plates out of habit. I stood up automatically to help. She shook her head. Sit. I hesitated. Please, she added. So I sat. Cassandra and my father carried dishes into the kitchen. I heard water running, cabinet doors opening. The house did not collapse. The dogs lay quietly by the fireplace. Later, while the others talked in the living room, my mother joined me in the kitchen. You have done well, she said, not looking directly at me. Thank you. I read the magazine piece again last night, she added. I did not see myself clearly at first. And now? Now I see we confuse dependence with closeness. Her honesty surprised me. I never wanted distance, I said. I wanted balance. She nodded slowly. Balance. The word seemed unfamiliar to her. When I left that evening, my father walked me to my car. Drive safely, he said. I will. He hesitated. I am proud of you, he added. This time, it did not feel reactive. It felt earned. As I drove back south the next morning, I noticed something quietly significant. I was not leaving in anger. I was leaving by choice. The house in Connecticut no longer defined me, but it no longer owned me either. Back in Savannah, I unpacked my suitcase and placed it in the closet. My phone buzzed once more before I went to bed. A text from Cassandra. The dogs barely barked tonight. I smiled faintly. Maybe they are finally settled, I typed back. She responded with a small heart. It was not a full repair, but it was a beginning. And for the first time in my life, I understood that returning does not mean surrendering. It means standing on your own feet when you walk through the door. I turned off the light and lay still in the quiet, knowing one final conversation still waited ahead. The final conversation did not happen in a courtroom or across a holiday table. It happened on an ordinary Sunday afternoon while I was reorganizing my studio shelves. My phone rang, and my mother's name appeared again. This time, I did not hesitate. I was thinking about something she said after a brief greeting. I waited. When you were little, you used to sit at the dining room table with beads and wire for hours, she continued. I remember stepping over your projects on the floor and telling you to clean them up because company was coming. I smiled faintly. You never stopped designing, she added. We just never paid attention. Her voice held no defensiveness, just reflection. I think I confused order with control, she said quietly. I believed keeping everything running smoothly meant we were close. I leaned against my work table. Closeness is not the same as dependence, I replied. No, she said. It is not. There was a pause. I do not expect you to move back, she continued. I know that now. But I hope you will visit without feeling like you owe us something. I will visit because I want to, I said. That is enough, she replied. After we hung up, I stood in the center of my studio and looked around. Metal molds lined the walls. Sketches covered one corner. My name was etched into the small brass plate near the door. For years, I had imagined revenge as something loud, public, dramatic. But what actually shifted everything was quieter. I left. I built. I did not return to clean up what they never saw. 2 weeks later, my collection was featured in a national department store window display. I flew to New York for the opening. Standing there under the bright lights, watching women examine my pieces, I felt steady. A woman in her late 60s approached me. I saw your story, she said. I left my marriage at 58. Best decision I ever made. Her hand rested over one of my necklaces. It is never too late to choose yourself, she added. I nodded. Later that night in my hotel room, I received an email from my father, short as always. Your mother showed me your new campaign photos. You look confident. I'm glad you did not stay small. I read that line twice. Did not stay small. He finally understood. Cassandra sent a message the next morning. Charlotte asked about you. I told her you design jewelry for women who stand tall. That felt different. Not competition, not resentment, recognition. Back in Savannah, life settled into rhythm again. Orders, meetings, new designs. The house in Connecticut no longer called for me every morning. They hired permanent help. The dogs were calmer. The kitchen ran without me, and I ran without them. One evening, I received a message from a woman in her 70s. I have been the one who stayed home for everyone else for 40 years, she wrote. Your story gave me permission to stop apologizing. I sat with that message longer than any sales report, because that was the real shift. Not money, not press, permission. Months passed, Christmas approached. My mother sent an invitation again, simple and unpressured. Come if you wish. I did go. This time I arrived at 4 in the afternoon. The table was already set. Cassandra greeted me with a brief hug. "You look good," she said. "So do you." The dogs wagged their tails but did not bark wildly. My mother handed me a glass of wine instead of a dish towel. We talked, not about what I owed, not about what they needed, about projects, about plans. At one point, my father asked about expanding into a second collection. I explained it. He listened. When I left that night, there was no heavy silence, just a simple goodbye. Driving back south, I thought about that summer evening in the backyard when Cassandra raised her glass and told me to stay home with her dogs. In that moment, they had laughed as if my place was obvious. Now my place was chosen. By me. That is the quiet part people rarely see. Walking away is not dramatic. It is deliberate. Building something of your own is not revenge. It is restoration. If this story feels familiar to you, if you have ever been the one who stayed, who cleaned, who showed up without being asked, then you understand. Leaving does not mean you do not love them. It means you finally love yourself too. If this journey resonated with you, share where you are watching from and what season of life you are in. And if you believe more women deserve stories like this, stay with me for the next one. Because sometimes the strongest thing you can do is step out of the room where they laughed and never shrink again. Disclaimer, this video is created solely for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes. While we strive to ensure our content is thoughtful and well-researched, it is based on publicly available sources, including news articles, social media discussions, public forums, editorial analyses, and user-generated content. Please note that we do not guarantee absolute accuracy, nor do we claim to provide official, definitive, or exhaustive information. This content does not constitute professional advice of any kind. We strongly encourage viewers to perform their own fact-checking and consult reliable sources before forming opinions or making decisions. Our intent. This content is not intended to discredit, defame, or harm any individual, group, entity, or nation. Instead, our goal is to present diverse perspectives, raise awareness, and foster respectful dialogue and deeper reflection on the world around us. We invite you to approach all content with a critical mind and an open heart. Thank you for watching and for being a valued member of our community.